Welcome to Infinity Learning Academy. Learn without limits. Struggling with maths? Let's make it simple and fun. Kids, are you ready? Hi kids. Today we are going to learn integers from basic to advanced, step by step. Get ready to explore positive numbers, negative numbers, and fun integer rules. Let's begin our math adventure.
Okay, let's learn.
Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to crack the code of integers. We're going to work through a practice worksheet together. But look, this isn't just about getting the right answers. It's about really getting the fundamental rules that make all of this number stuff work. So let's just dive right in.
So let's kick things off with a real classic, a true head-scratcher, right? Why on earth does a negative times a negative make a positive? It can feel kind of like a magic trick. One way to think about it is like you're removing a debt. If something negative is taken away from you, well, that's a positive thing. By the end of this, you're going to see it's all based on some pretty simple, consistent logic.
And you know, these rules aren't just for some abstract math class. Think about it. What could a freezing temperature of -4 degrees, a submarine 250 meters below the sea, and maybe even your bank account possibly have in common? They all use integers to talk about values that drop below zero, something we actually deal with all the time.
All right, first stop, welcome to the number line. This thing is basically our map for understanding how integers behave. So yeah, let's start with the absolute basics.
So let's tackle our first fill-in-the-blank. The sum of two negative integers is always what? Well, just picture that number line in your head. When you add a negative number, you're just moving to the left. So if you're already on the left side of zero and you move even further left, you're just going deeper into negative territory, right? So the sum is always a negative integer.
Okay, now that we've got the basic idea, let's really put that concept into motion. It's time to start moving with integers and apply these rules to a couple of real-world problems. First up, the temperature problem. Okay, so we're starting out at a super chilly -4 degrees. Then, the temperature rises by 10 degrees. On our number line, a rise just means we're moving to the right. So if we start at -4 and take 10 steps to the right, we land at a much more comfortable +6 degrees. All right, now for the submarine. It's starting at -250 meters, and then it descends another 75. Descending means going deeper, or moving further to the left on our number line. So -250 plus another -75 takes that sub all the way down to a new depth of -325 meters. See, it's a perfect example of that very first rule we talked about.
Okay, now for the big one, the part that trips a lot of people up, multiplication and division. Let's talk about the rules of signs. I promise there's a really simple master key to remember here that's going to make it all just click. Let's just look at these two examples for a second and see if we can spot a pattern. Over on the left, we've got different signs, a negative divided by a positive, and look, the result is negative. Now on the right, we've got the same signs, a negative divided by a negative, and boom, the result is positive. Do you see it? That's the core of it, right there.
And here it is. This is the master key I was talking about. For both multiplication and division, the rule is exactly the same. If the signs are the same, so two positives or two negatives, the result is always positive. If the signs are different, one of each, the result is always negative. That's it. That is literally the entire secret.
So let's use that key to simplify this problem. -10 times -5 times -2. We'll just do it step by step. First, -10 times -5. The signs are the same, so the answer has to be +50. Now we take that +50 and we multiply it by -2. The signs are now different, so our final answer is -100. It's as simple as that.
All right, to finish things off, let's cover a couple of key properties and the very special role that the number 0 plays in all of this. These are the final secrets of integers. First up, we've got this term that sounds way more complicated than it actually is, the additive inverse. Don't let the name fool you. It's just a fancy way of saying it's the number you have to add to any integer to get right back to 0. It's its perfect opposite, like its mirror image on the other side of the number line. So, if we look at our worksheet, the additive inverse of -85 is simply +85. It's the number that cancels it out perfectly. And that's the exact same logic for the second one. To get from -12 back to 0, you have to add its additive inverse, which is +12.
Next up is something called the commutative property. Again, another fancy name for a super simple idea. When you're adding, this just means the order you add numbers in doesn't matter. Not one bit. You can swap them around all you want, and the result will be exactly the same.
And here is that property in action, straight from our worksheet. Saying -5 plus 8 is the exact same thing as saying 8 plus -5. Either way you slice it, you end up with +3. The order just doesn't change a thing.
And we cannot finish without this final golden rule. It's probably the simplest one of all, but it is absolutely essential. Any integer, I don't care how big or how small, positive or negative, when you multiply it by 0, the answer is always, always 0.
So there you have it. We just took a simple worksheet and used it to pretty much master the essential rules for integers. We've cracked the code for these whole numbers. But it does leave us with a pretty fascinating question to think about, doesn't it? What happens when we start trying to put fractions on that number line? Well, that's a whole other adventure for another day.
Thank you for watching. One click for better maths. Subscribe and see the difference. Turn confusion into confidence. Subscribe and click the bell icon.